Vera Zayden's arms were shaking under the weight of the last box, sweat sticking her hair to her forehead, when the glass door to the apartment building slammed back and a deep voice called out, "Do you need help with that?" She squinted into the sunlight and nearly dropped the box. The man walking toward her looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, not in the middle of a Brooklyn sidewalk beside her beat-up Corolla. Tall, broad shoulders under a crisp navy suit, sharp jawline, and eyes so focused it made her heart skip. She stammered, tightening her grip. "I've got it, thanks." He didn't stop. He took the box out of her arms like it weighed nothing and nodded to the open trunk. "You moving in here?" Vera blinked. "Yeah, 4th floor, no elevator." "Perfect," he said, almost like he meant it. "I've got time." She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Do you always help strangers move boxes in your suit?" A grin tugged at his mouth. "Only when they look like they're about to pass out." Her cheeks flushed. "Okay, fine. If you insist." They moved the rest of her boxes in silence, save for his occasional questions. "You from New York? What do you do? How long have you been waiting on that broken AC to get fixed?" All delivered casually, like he wasn't sweating through a $1,000 shirt. She found out his name was Victor Zane. Just Victor at first. He didn't mention a job or money. Or why he was wearing a watch that probably cost more than her rent. After the last box hit the floor of her new studio, Vera wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and glanced at him. "Thanks." "Seriously, you didn't have to do any of that." Victor leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with a look she couldn't quite place. "You're welcome. You remind me of someone I used to know." Vera arched a brow. "Let me guess, your little sister," he laughed. "No." "Her name was Vera too." She rolled her eyes. "Nice try." "I mean it," he said, straightening. "I haven't heard that name since high school." He stepped closer. "I'm not making it up." "Sure, and I'm secretly a billionaire," she said, brushing past him to open a box. He chuckled. "That's funny." When she glanced back, he was still watching her. There was something about him, something quiet but intense, something that made her feel like she should know him. But she didn't, not yet. He helped her fix her crooked bed frame, tightened the screws on her wobbly table, and even killed a spider in the corner of her bathroom. She offered him a warm bottle of water and a granola bar in return. He took the water, passed on the granola. "You really just moved here?" he asked, sitting on the edge of the bed, his arms resting on his knees. "Yep, needed a fresh start. My old place had black mold and my last job downsized." He nodded slowly. "What do you do?" "Graphic design, freelance." "It's unstable, but I love it." He smiled like he genuinely liked hearing that. "You're brave." Vera gave him a look. "Brave for barely affording rent, for starting over," he said. "That takes guts." She didn't know what to say to that. No one ever called her brave, mostly just broke. Eventually, he stood. "All right, I should go." But he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. "If you ever need help with anything, I'm around." She took the card slowly. No company name, just a phone number and his name in embossed silver letters, Victor Zane. "I don't usually accept cards from strange men," she said. He tilted his head. "Then I guess I'll have to stop being a stranger." When he left, the apartment felt smaller, quieter. She stared at the card for a long time before tucking it into the drawer with her pencils. 3 days later, she ran into him again, this time at the corner coffee shop. He was sitting in the back, typing on a laptop, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. She almost didn't recognize him. Almost. "You follow me?" she teased, sliding into the seat across from him uninvited. Victor looked up and smiled like he'd been waiting for her. "You wish. You seriously drink coffee here?" she asked, glancing around at the chipped tables and loud college kids. "I like the noise, helps me think." She gave him a look. "You run a business or something?" He hesitated for half a second. "Or something?" She squinted. "What does that mean?" "I'm a CEO." She choked on her iced coffee. "Of what?" "A gym," he laughed. "Zane Tech." She blinked. "Wait, the Zane Tech, like the tech company?" He nodded, calm as ever. "You weren't joking about the suit," she muttered. "Nope." She leaned back, eyes wide. "And you helped me carry boxes in 4 flights of stairs. You looked like you needed help." Vera stared at him. "You're a billionaire," he shrugged. I'm also really good at assembling IKEA furniture. From that day, Victor kept showing up. He'd bring her coffee in the mornings and walk her to the subway if he was free. He helped her hang her prints, took her to a gallery opening, and even got her an unexpected freelance gig designing a pitch deck for a startup through Zane Tech, though he never said it outright. One evening, she found herself sitting beside him in the back of a chauffeured black car, wearing a dress he'd bought her, just because it looked like something you'd wear to dinner with me. The restaurant had a chandelier the size of her apartment. The waiter called him Mr. Zane. Every course was a piece of art and tasted like heaven. You know, she said as they clinked glasses, you don't have to impress me. Victor looked at her, eyes serious. I'm not trying to impress you, I just want to understand how I got this lucky, her breath caught. He reached over, brushing his thumb over her hand. I didn't mean to get involved when I carried your boxes, but now I can't stop thinking about you. Vera's heart was pounding. Victor. I know we haven't known each other long, he said, but I want to. She stared at him, every nerve buzzing. You're not just another girl I met, he continued. You're the only one I can't stop thinking about, and I don't want this to be temporary. He paused. I want to be in your life. If you'll let me. She couldn't speak, so she leaned in and kissed him, and that was the beginning of everything. Vera tugged her jacket tighter around herself as the wind whipped through the narrow street, her boots clicking against the pavement. She was late again, but Victor had left a message with her neighbor, asking her to meet him at a private gallery downtown. No explanation, just an address on the back of a sleek white envelope and a note. Wear something you feel powerful in. She debated not going. But the curiosity and something deeper pulled her there. The building was a converted firehouse, its brick facade aged but elegant. Inside, soft lighting bathed the walls in gold. Paintings lined the space, bold, raw, abstract work that looked like something pulled straight from a dream. And right in the center stood Victor, hands in his pockets, watching her take it all in. I didn't know you liked art, Vera said, her voice echoing softly in the open space. I don't, Victor replied, stepping closer, but I like what you create. And I thought you deserved to see your work framed on a wall. She froze. Then turned slowly. Her designs, pieces she'd made in the quiet hours of insomnia, for herself, not for clients, were displayed across the far wall. Printed on canvas, elevated in a way she had never even imagined. Her throat tightened. How did you get these? Victor's expression was unreadable. You left your portfolio open on your desk the other day. I asked a friend who runs this space to help me curate something. Vera stepped forward, eyes locked on one of her prints, lines and color that had once been a reflection of heartbreak, now glowing under gallery lights. You did all this, he nodded. I wanted you to see what I see. She turned to him, overwhelmed. Victor, I didn't ask for this. I know, that's why it means something, he said quietly. You don't ask for anything, you never expect more than what's given, but you deserve more, and I don't say that lightly. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Instead, she walked the length of the room, touching the edge of each frame. She'd never seen her work this way, elevated, respected. It felt like being seen for the first time. They left the gallery in silence, but it wasn't cold. There was something unspoken between them now, a current that hummed low and steady beneath the surface. Victor's driver held the door, and she slid into the back seat beside him. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly spicy. Neither of them spoke until the car pulled away from the curb. You didn't have to do all that, Vera finally said, her voice soft. Victor looked at her, brow furrowed. I know, but I wanted to. She hesitated. Do you always do things like that for people you've just met? No, he said. I don't. The way he said it made her chest tighten. She needed air. Take me somewhere that doesn't have 5-star reviews and valet service, she blurted. Victor blinked. Now? Yes, right now. I want to see where you go when no one's watching. He grinned differently this time. Less polished, more real. All right. The car rerouted, winding through the city until it stopped in front of a modest diner tucked between a laundromat and a locksmith. The sign flickered. The windows were fogged. Victor led her inside like he'd done it 100 times. They slid into a booth with cracked leather seats and a laminated menu that hadn't changed in decades. "I used to come here in college," he said, picking up a fork and spinning it between his fingers. "Before Zane Tech, before the money. When I was living out of a 2-bedroom with 3 roommates and eating toast for dinner." Vera leaned forward. "What changed?" He paused. "My father died, left me everything. I wasn't ready, but I didn't have a choice." She studied him. "You never talk about your family." "There's not much to say," he said quietly. "My mother passed when I was 15. My father buried himself in work. I barely saw him except when I was in trouble or expected to perform." Vera's voice softened. "That must have been hard." "It taught me how to build something," he replied, "but not how to let people in." He looked at her then, and something in his gaze made her breath hitch. "I'm still learning," he said. The waitress arrived with their food: grilled cheese, fries, and 2 chocolate milkshakes. Vera laughed when she saw his order. "You drink milkshakes?" "Religiously," he replied, dipping a fry in one. "Don't judge me." She took a bite of her sandwich and leaned back. "I don't think I could judge you if I tried." Victor's phone buzzed once. He slid it aside without looking. "You don't want to check that?" "No," he said. "Tonight I'm here." Vera looked at him across the table, the golden light catching the edge of his jaw. "You're not like I expected." "Neither are you," he said. "But I'm glad." They left the diner after midnight, the city quieter now. He walked her up to her building but didn't follow her in. "Victor," she said, pausing at the door. "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. "Because you don't pretend, because you challenge me, and because when I'm with you I don't feel like I have to be anyone else." She stepped closer. "That's a dangerous thing to say." "I know," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "But it's true." She opened the door, heart pounding. "Good night." "Good night, Vera." She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, breathless. Upstairs, she found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a contract from Zane Tech. A real one. Full-time work, creative lead on a new campaign. No expectations, no strings, just a handwritten note in the corner. "This is yours, only if you want it." Vera looked out the window, down at the street where Victor had just disappeared into the night. And for the first time in a long time, she wondered what her life would look like if she stopped running from the things that scared her most. Vera stood frozen on the rooftop, her hands curled around the railing as the wind tangled her hair. Below, the city pulsed like a living thing, lights blinking, horns echoing faintly, the kind of chaos that made her feel small and infinite at the same time. But it wasn't the view that made her heart race. It was the man standing behind her, silent, waiting. "You didn't have to bring me here," she said finally, not turning around. Victor's voice was steady. "I wanted to show you something." She turned. He was holding something out to her, a worn leather sketchbook, the edges softened with time. She blinked. "Is that mine?" "You left it in the car," he said. "I didn't read anything, just saw your name inside." She took it gently, her fingertips brushing his. "I haven't looked through this in years." "I thought maybe it would remind you," he said, "of how far you've come." Vera opened the cover. The first page was a messy pencil drawing of her childhood home's kitchen, done in a shaky hand and smudged with tears. She flipped through slowly portraits of strangers on the subway, abstract splashes of color that had made no sense to anyone but her. A page of angry brushstrokes from the night she'd found out about her father's second family. She closed it. "You don't know what you're asking me to remember." "I'm not asking you to," Victor said, "just offering space for it." She set the book down on the ledge and looked at him. "Why are you doing this? The gallery, the work offer, this rooftop. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything," he said. "I'm trying to be honest, with me, or with yourself." Victor walked past her to the edge of the rooftop and looked out. "Both." Vera crossed her arms tightly. "This doesn't make sense. You live in a world with private jets and billion-dollar acquisitions. I scramble to pay bills and lose sleep over client invoices. You're in a different orbit." Victor turned to face her now. "And yet I keep finding myself pulled into yours." She shook her head. That's not enough. I know, he said. That's why I'm telling you. I want more than just fleeting moments and rooftop conversations. Vera's breath caught, the air between them tightened. You said you didn't know how to let people in, she said carefully. I'm learning, Victor said. But I can't do it alone. They stood there, the sound of the city weaving between them. I don't want to be your escape, she said after a long moment. I don't want to be the thing you run to when your world gets too loud. You're not, he said. You're the one thing that makes it all quieter. She looked away, her throat tightening. Victor stepped closer. I have to leave for London tomorrow, just for a few days, investor meetings. She glanced at him. So this is goodbye? No, he said. This is me asking if I can see you when I get back. Vera hesitated. I don't know what this is, Victor. I don't know if it's real or just a distraction from your life. Then let me prove it's real, he said. When I come back, let me show you. She didn't answer. Not with words. But she let him hold her hand for the first time. 2 days later, she stood outside the Zane Tech headquarters, the contract still unsigned in her bag. A woman in a sharp charcoal blazer met her in the lobby. You're Miss Zayden? The woman asked. Vera nodded. This way? She followed her through a maze of glass walls and polished wood until they reached a private office. Inside, a tall man with gray hair and an impeccable suit stood waiting. Miss Zayden, he said, offering a hand. I'm Malcolm Arliss, chairman of the board. Vera took his hand cautiously. I wasn't expecting to meet anyone today. I know Victor isn't here, but he left instructions for us to speak. He values your opinion, she frowned. About what? Malcolm gestured for her to sit. Victor's been considering launching a new design division, something more art-forward, less corporate. He mentioned your name as a potential creative partner. Vera blinked. Excuse me. He believes in your vision, Malcolm said, folding his hands. He said you see beauty where others see risk, she exhaled slowly. That sounds like him. Malcolm studied her. He doesn't say that about many people. After the meeting, Vera walked straight past the subway and kept going. She needed time, space, clarity. She wandered into a bookstore she used to visit during college, the kind with uneven shelves and a cat asleep on the poetry section. She found herself flipping through a book on color theory, her fingers tracing old notes in the margins. She remembered how she used to dream of opening a studio. Not a big one. Just a space with light and quiet and enough wall space to hang everything that didn't fit inside a sketchbook. Her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Vera Zayden, a voice asked. This is she. This is Leona from the Manhattan Arts Council. We received a referral from a Victor Zane about your work. He submitted your digital portfolio for review. Vera's throat went dry. I didn't know he did that. Well, Leona said, it impressed our selection panel. We'd like to invite you to present at the Emerging Artists Showcase next month. Vera leaned against the bookshelf, too stunned to speak. We'll follow up with the details, Leona added. Congratulations. As the line went dead, Vera stared at her reflection in the darkened storefront window. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she pulled out the sketchbook Victor had returned to her and flipped to a blank page. She began to draw. The first time Vera saw Victor again after his trip was not in a boardroom, not on a rooftop, not even in the city. It was at a small community center in Queens, where she'd been asked to speak to a group of high school students about building creative careers. She'd agreed reluctantly, not used to being the one behind the microphone. But the moment she stepped into the auditorium, she saw him standing in the back with his arms crossed, a quiet expression on his face that didn't match the usual boardroom confidence. He didn't approach her until the last student had left and the folding chairs had been half stacked. She was gathering her things when she heard his voice behind her. I didn't want to interrupt. Vera turned slowly. How did you know I'd be here? I didn't, Victor said. Someone forwarded me the event listing. I wasn't sure if you'd want me to come. She met his eyes. I wasn't sure either. I wanted to wait until I could show you something, he said, and give you something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, rectangular key. It was attached to a tag that read, Studio 9B. She blinked. "What is this?" "A space on the Lower East Side," he said. "Natural light, open floor plan, a few blocks from a gallery that's interested in carrying your pieces after the showcase." Vera's fingers curled around the key. "Why would you? I bought the building 2 years ago," he said. "It sat empty until last week. I had the top floor converted. It's yours for as long as you want it. No contracts, no press releases. It's not a gift, it's an investment in your vision." She stared at the key, her chest rising unevenly. "Victor, you don't have to accept it," he said. "But it's there, if you're ready." She looked up. "Why are you doing this?" His voice was quiet. "Because the night I helped you carry those boxes, I thought I was just being neighborly, but I walked away thinking about you for days. And I kept thinking about you every day after that." He stepped closer, careful not to touch her. "I didn't know what I needed until I met you. You don't care how much I'm worth. You never asked for anything, but you gave me something I didn't know I'd been missing." Vera's throat tightened. "You don't know everything about me." "I don't need to," he said. "I just know that I want to be there while I learn." She hesitated. "You want to be in my life even when it's messy, when I shut down, when I get scared and push people away. I want all of it," he said. "Not just the parts that are easy. I don't want to be someone who just shows up when it's convenient." Her hands were shaking slightly when she looked down at the key again. "I've spent so long building walls," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone would ever want to stay long enough to get through them." His voice was steady. "I'm not going anywhere." She stepped forward and reached for his hand, her fingers lacing with his. "I believe you," she said. 2 weeks later, Studio 9B opened quietly without press, without photographers. Just her, a few canvases, and a table covered in charcoal pencils and paint tubes. She worked with the windows open, music low, and a cup of coffee that Victor brought her every morning before disappearing into meetings. He never lingered, never hovered, just kissed her temple, handed her the coffee, and said, "Make something impossible today." Sometimes he came back after sunset, loosened tie and tired eyes, and sat quietly while she painted. He never offered critiques. He just listened when she talked about texture and negative space, and the difference between chaos and shape. One evening, she found him asleep on the worn couch in the corner, his arms slung over his eyes, his jacket folded neatly over the back of a chair. She covered him with a blanket and sat beside him on the floor, sketching the outline of his hand. The showcase came and went. Her work sold. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to prove that this life, the one she had built with trembling hands, was no longer a dream. She stood beside Victor outside the gallery after the closing night, the air thick with city heat and the buzz of passing traffic. "I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop," she admitted quietly. "Like this was all going to disappear." Victor took her hand. "It won't. I think I'm finally starting to believe that." "I knew you would," he said. "Eventually." They walked in comfortable silence until they reached the stoop of her apartment building, the same one he'd carried boxes up not so long ago. Vera paused. "Do you remember what you said that day?" "I said you reminded me of someone I used to know." She looked at him. "You never told me who." Victor's brow lifted slightly. "It was you," she frowned. "What? I met you once, years ago, at a youth gala my father dragged me to. You were sketching in the corner. Everyone else was networking. You didn't even look up when I said hello." Her mouth parted in surprise. "I never forgot you," he said. "And when I saw you again, carrying boxes up 4 flights of stairs, I thought maybe the universe was giving me a second shot." She laughed softly. "You waited all this time to tell me that." "I figured I already had your attention," he said. "Didn't want to risk ruining it with a weird memory." She stepped closer and rested her forehead against his. "You're ridiculous. But you like me anyway." "I love you," she whispered. He froze just for a second, then his arms wrapped around her, pulling her in tightly. "I love you too," he said, voice low and certain. They stood there as the city moved around them, wrapped in something that felt bold and unshakable. Victor didn't carry her boxes again. He didn't need to. He'd already carried her heart. And this time he wasn't putting it down. The first time Vera stepped into the building Victor had given her the key to, she didn't expect to find him there, sleeves rolled, crouching beside an open crate. "I thought you had meetings all day," she said, her voice echoing lightly through the high-ceilinged studio. "I canceled them," Victor replied without looking up. "I figured if I was going to give you a studio, I should at least help unpack some of the furniture I bought for it." "You bought furniture?" He stood, brushing dust from his hands. "You'll need a few things: a proper desk, a drafting table, a couch for when you get stuck and need to stare at the ceiling for inspiration." She took a step forward, her eyes scanning the space. Light poured in from tall, industrial windows. The scent of fresh wood and open paint cans filled the air. There were no signs of the building's former life, only the bones of something new, something entirely hers. "No one's ever done something like this for me," she murmured. Victor turned toward her. "I didn't do it to be exceptional. I did it because you deserve a place that matches your vision." She crossed to where he stood and picked up a small, unopened box labeled pastels. Her fingers ran over the tape line. "You know, this doesn't mean I'm going to suddenly become a different person," she said. "I'll still overthink everything. I'll still get overwhelmed. I'll still question everything I make." Victor took the box from her and set it gently on a shelf. "Then I'll be the one reminding you that none of that changes your talent." She looked at him for a long moment. "Have you ever had something that scared you because it mattered too much?" "Yes," he said. She didn't flinch. "So what do we do with that?" Victor's eyes softened. "We let it matter." Later that week, she met Victor's head of design, a sharp-eyed woman named Elise who wore sculptural blazers and carried herself like a metronome. Elise walked through the studio with a practiced gaze, nodding at Vera's in-progress pieces. "I've been waiting for someone in this city to do something that doesn't look like it was made to match a sofa," she said. "Victor said you were the real thing. Looks like he was right." Vera raised an eyebrow. "I'm not interested in compromise." "Good," Elise said, already turning toward the door. "That's why I'm offering you a collaboration." Vera blinked. "On what?" "A mixed-media installation for the Zane Tech Innovation Gala. No limitations. Just you, your vision, and a ridiculous supply budget." Elise paused. "It's not just a show, it's a statement." When she told Victor about the offer, he didn't blink. "I told her you'd say yes," he said. "Eventually." "I haven't said yes," Vera replied, arms crossed. Victor leaned closer. "But you're thinking about it." She was. And 2 days later she said yes. In the weeks that followed, the studio transformed. Canvas stretched across frames. Sculptures built from recycled metals and glass filled the corners. Vera worked late into the night, sometimes still in paint-streaked clothes when Victor stopped by with food or just to sit across from her, reading with his feet up on the corner of her desk. They didn't talk about what was next. They didn't need to. The night of the gala, Vera stood in front of her finished piece. A 10-foot-tall installation of layered textures, light projections, and embedded sketches that pulsed with movement. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't safe. It was real. Victor stood beside her, black tux crisp, tie undone just enough to make her smile. "You ready?" he asked. "No," she said honestly. "But I'm doing it anyway." He took her hand. "That's why they'll remember it." When the installation was unveiled, the room went quiet. Executives, artists, investors, and influencers all stood still, watching the way the piece bent light and shadow, how it shimmered without being delicate, how it told a story without words. Elise approached later, glass in hand. "They're already calling it the heartbeat of the gala." Vera looked at Victor. "I'm not used to things going right." "Maybe it's time you got used to it," he replied. They left the gala before midnight, slipping away into the quiet of the city. Vera kicked off her heels and walked barefoot beside Victor down a cobbled street lit by antique lamps. "I always thought falling in love would feel like losing control," she said. "But it doesn't, not with you." He stopped walking. "What does it feel like?" "Like coming home." Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Then maybe it's time we built one." She unfolded it slowly. It was a floor plan, a brownstone in Brooklyn, tall ceilings, skylights, a studio on the top floor, a garden out back. "You're not serious," Vera whispered. "I am," he said. "It's not a grand gesture this time, it's a life, ours, if you want it." She looked up at him. "I do." They moved into the brownstone 4 months later. It wasn't perfect, there were leaks in the ceiling, the floors creaked, and Victor once accidentally flooded the garden trying to install an irrigation system. But it was theirs. She painted in the mornings. He worked 2 floors below, often barefoot, always with coffee ready by the time she came down to join him for lunch. One day, she found a small package on her work table. Inside was a thin gold bracelet with the word "begin" etched into the inside. She turned to find Victor leaning in the doorway. "You once told me you were afraid to start," he said. "Now look at you." She walked to him, slipping the bracelet on. "I didn't do it alone." "You didn't have to," he said. "Not anymore." And so they stayed in the brownstone with the leaky ceilings and the wild garden, in the studio that smelled of oil paint and fresh coffee, in a love that had begun with a box on a sidewalk and grew into something that filled every quiet space between them. They never needed to say forever. They were already living it.